So the microphone, everything's good?
Yes.
Touch your nose in the back if you can hear me. Yeah, okay, thank you. Good. Hi, my name is Angel Vigil. Thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be in the presence of the fellow storytellers. Thank you so much for sharing the stage with me. If you want to know more about me, really, angelvigil.com. My books are on Amazon or in libraries. Talk to my mom, she'll tell you I'm great. Other than that, thank you so much for staying tonight. Thank you so much for coming to Noche de Cuentos. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. They're kind of companion pieces because they have a character that bridges him, one of the most renowned and in my world, famous of the characters of Latino storytelling. And then, of course, one's more serious in tone and one's more lighthearted in tone. And I'll send us off tonight to our own dreams. Our own dreams in the verse. Oh, just a minute, someone wants to take my picture. Okay. The first one is called Donna Sebastiano. Once, there was a farmer who lived in northern New Mexico. Well, if you live in northern New Mexico like I have, well, you know that in the years where there is rain in abundance, that the waters fall into the ground and the ground gives forth their abundance. And out of that abundance comes food for the whole valley, and there's happiness and joy in every family in the valley. However, in a year when there is drought, the ground is rocky and barren and gives forth nothing, and there's hunger throughout the land. Now, it had been several years of drought. And in every farm throughout the valley, every night after night, parents would put their little children to bed. And they'd look in their eyes and they could tell that the children are hungry, for they had not eaten for many days. But the little kids, they would say, "It's okay, papi, we'll eat mañana." But he knew that mañana, they'd go hungry again. And it broke his heart in a way that only a parent can understand. In that pain and sorrow, as he put his children to sleep and he looked into their sad, hungry eyes, it made him do something that wasn't in his character, but it was in his will. He would become a thief in the night, and his children would eat. So late at night in the darkness, he snuck over to his neighbor's chicken coop. Walking by the sleeping dog, who was doing a much better job of sleeping than guarding. He went into the chicken coop, and if you've ever gone into the chicken coop, you got to be really quiet. Slightest noise makes it go crazy. He's like a ghost at night, on a sacred mission to feed his children. And he grabbed a chicken. He said, "If you're a thief once, you might as well be a thief twice." And he grabbed another one. He carefully walked past the sleeping guard dog. Going home over that rocky and barren ground to the darkness of the midnight forest, he held up a chicken and he said, "Tomorrow my children will eat." But then he realized he'd not eaten for a long time either, and he looked at the other chicken. He had an idea. He tied off the one chicken securely and safely, saving it for his children. Well, then the other chicken, he prepared in the old-time way, just wrung its neck off and plucked it and made a little fire right there. And he's cooking that chicken, and all of a sudden he heard someone coming out of the darkness. And he looked, and a person was approaching him. And he thought he'd been discovered as a thief, and that shame and dishonor would come to his family name throughout the valley for all time. They'd be embarrassed and humiliated by his act of thievery. And he tried to put out the fire, but it was too late. A person was standing right by him. The person said, "Good evening. Often in my travels, people will share their meal with me. Will you share the meal tonight?" And the farmer looked at the chicken, and he looked at the stranger, and he said, "You're but a stranger in these parts. Please, reveal yourself, and we shall share the meal." And the person said, "I am the Lord Jesus Christ. Often on my travels to this earth to tend to my flock, people will share their meal with me. will you share your meal with me tonight? And without hesitation, the farmer said, no, I will not. And the reason is you have created an unjust world. On one side are the rich and powerful, beyond all merit and worth. And on the other side are the poor and miserable, beyond all compassion and understanding. And since I am one of the poor and miserable, I know what it is like to live in this unjust world you created. For that reason, I will not share my meal with you. Lord Jesus Christ said, thank you very much, and receded into the darkness. Here the story repeats itself. Chicken's almost waiting, another person's coming, and again he thought he'd been discovered as a thief, and shame and dishonor would come to his family name throughout the valley. But this time it was a woman. And when he said, please reveal yourself and we shall share the meal, she said, I am Maria Santissima, the Blessed Virgin Mary. Often I accompany my son as he tends to his flock on this earth, and people will share their meal with us. Will you share your meal with me tonight? And the farmer without hesitation said, no, I will not. And the reason is, your son created an unjust world. On one side, the rich and powerful, beyond all merit and worth. On the other side, the poor and miserable, beyond all compassion and understanding. And since I am one of the poor and miserable, and you never taught your son any better, and he still created that unequal earth, because of that injustice and that you did not teach your son any better, I will not share my meal with you. And Maria Santissima said, thank you very much, and receded into the darkness. Chicken's almost ready, and all of a sudden a gust of wind came and blew up fire. The clouds covered up the moonlight. A chill went down the spine of the farmer. His throat was grasped tightly, as if an iron grasp was choking life out of him. His breath was escaping him. His heart was solid. Fear enveloped him. Then he heard a sound he hadn't heard before. He heard the sound of someone dragging a heavy wooden cart along the rocky and barren ground of northern New Mexico. When he looked into the darkness, a hooded, cloaked figure came to him. At that instant, the clouds cleared and the pale moonlight shone upon the person. Through transparent skin, he could see icy blue veins and the clear suggestion of a skeleton. A bony finger came out, and a cold voice said, good evening. Yes, you know who I am. I'm Donna Sebastiano, La Muerte, death herself. And she pointed to a heavy wooden cart. And she said, tonight, I'm dragging la carreta de la muerte, the death cart, collecting souls for their long journey into eternity. But do not worry. Tonight is not your night. You will live another day. As soon as he heard that he would live another day, the hand released from his throat. Breath came back to him. His voice returned. And Donna Sebastiana said, I am weary. Will you share your meal with me? The farmer said, yes, I will. And the reason I will is you treat people equally. At the moment of your call, at the moment of your touch, all people, rich, poor, young, old, beautiful, ugly, all people must answer your call equally. For that reason, I will share the meal with you. So they ate the chicken, and when it was gone, Donna Sebastiana stood up and said, farmer, tonight, you've been brave and wise. For that reason, I will give you a gift. I'll give you the gift of the curandero, the healer. You shall take the dirt of the earth. You shall take the plants of the mountainside. You shall take the water of the river. guidance that I give you tonight and the powers that I give you. You shall lay your hands on the sick and dying, and life will return to that person. However, curandero, you must remember our agreement tonight. If ever you come into the room of sickness and death, and I am at the head of the bed, that person's soul is mine. You're not to use the powers I give you. However, if you come in and I am at the foot of the bed, I am but passing through like I am with you tonight. And you may use the powers I give you, and life will return to that person. Over the years, the powers of the curandero spread throughout the valley. Many, many, many nights, a sick and dying person would call for the curandero. Curandero often came into the room, and head of the bed stood Donna Sebastiano, and he'd say, "There's nothing I can do. Prepare your soul for its long journey into eternity." Often he'd come in and she was at the foot of the bed, and he would use his powers. One night, the wealthiest man in the whole valley was dying. He called for the curandero. He called a cry. Every single person in this room will cry. The human cry. One day, some of us sooner than others, though. I'm too young to die. Please give me one more day. I'm too young to die. Curandero looked, and there was Donna Sebastiano at the head of the bed. And he said, "There is nothing I can do for you." The wealthy man gathered all his spirit, and in one last desperate cry, his last breath on this earth, he called out to the curandero. "Curandero, I've seen you do this. I know you can do this. If you give me one more day, all my riches are yours." Now the curandero, he'd use those powers all through his years. And he started to believe the powers were his alone, inside him, that they came from him. And because he was human, at the moment of temptation, he was weak. And the idea of all those riches, for the second time in his life, made him be a man of action. And he went over and he got the bed and he spun it around. Now Donna Sebastiano was at the foot of the bed. And he did use his powers. He took the dirt of the earth. He took the plants of the mountainside. He took the water of the river. He put his hands on that sick and dying man, and life returned to that man. Later that night, curandero was walking over a rocky and barren path he had not walked over for many, many, many years. And he heard a sound he'd not heard for many years. The sound of someone dragging a heavy wooden cart over the rocky and barren ground of northern New Mexico. He looked into the darkness, and a hooded cloaked figure came to him. The clouds broke, the pale moonlight revealed icy blue veins in a skeleton, and a bony finger came out, and a cold voice said, "Curandero, tonight you made a mistake." And she pointed to the carreta de la muerte, the death cart, and on it were two candles. One of them tall, burning bright, but hours left to burn. One of them short, with a pale, weak flame.